do you think, as some people in your agency do, that Iran already has a weapon? And what's your prediction about the current negotiations to bring the fuel to Russia and France? And is Iran not an example of, as Iraq was, as boys and their toys? They don't want to be disarmed. And as you said, with nuclear energy becoming popular and sexy, is Iran not a symbol of the dangers of it?
I keep saying, we have no indication, no concrete proof that Iran has an ongoing nuclear weapon program. That is my views. That is the views of the agency. That's the view is supported by the NEI, the Nuclear National Intelligence Assessment here, who have said that Iran developed weaponization studies, not a weapon, and that they stopped in 2003. That statement has been reaffirmed in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So we do not, while we have questions about this issue, that whether Iran has played with studies, with information, we have no reason that Iran has advanced to manufacture nuclear weapon or has an ongoing nuclear weapon program. That is, I think that's clearly where we are. Iran program, in many ways, as we discussed, Iran program is an effort to force recognition of its role as a regional power. In my view, Iran nuclear program is a means to an end. It wants to be recognized as a regional power. It wants to be, as I said, they believe that the nuclear know-how bring prestige, bring power, and they would like to get to see the U.S. engaging them. And, well, fortunately or unfortunately, that holds some truth. Iran has been taken seriously, since they have developed their program, or developed the technology. And now we have obviously an opportunity. I mean, I don't want to talk about the 50 years from the CIA and MI6 getting rid of the Mossadegh, first nationally elected leader in Iran in 1953, to the hostage. There's 50 years of animosity and distrust. I think now it's a unique opportunity. I see it's the first time, at least in my 25 years with the agency, when I see a genuine desire on both sides to seriously engage, not only on the nuclear issue, but on the broad range of issues. I think Barack Obama today, I just saw his statement, he's saying we have mutual interests. I could not agree more. I mean, Iran could be the door to a stable Middle East, in Iraq, in Afghanistan, in Syria, Lebanon, in the Palestinian territory. And also it could be a source of aggravation of the situation. Iran needs the U.S. badly in terms of technology, in terms of integration, trade, what have you. So how to get the two powers, engaged? And again, I come back to the dialogue. I mean, after 50 years, it's very difficult. There's a lot of mistrust. And what we are working on right now through the so-called fuel, providing Iran with a fuel to its research reactor, which is basically used for medical purpose, providing isotopes for diagnosis and treatment of cancer. It's a perfect peg to start the dialogue, and we are hoping that we will be able to get that. There is at least an agreement that Iran will give up its low-enriched uranium that has been produced, and in return for getting fuel for the reactor. The question is not really that basic. On that, there is an agreement. The question is the timing, the sequencing, the modalities. And we, again, after 50 years of mistrust, that is a difficult question. And we're trying, everybody is trying to use creativity, ingenuity to try to find a solution. I think it's very clear if we succeed on that, that would open the way to finally a new era when Iran and the U.S., and they are the two who can really do the heavy lifting in this whole issue, can work together and engage. And if I'm able to do that before the end of the month, as I said, I'd leave my office as a very happy man. I just want to
press you on one aspect of that, because you spent as much time or more time talking to the Iranian people involved in their nuclear program as anybody else. And as I heard you talking, I sensed that you seem to be suggesting the Iranians saw a lot of what they have done or are doing in the nuclear realm as something of a bargaining chip that they could trade off, as opposed to those who say it's not that. And what they really want is they want nuclear weapons because they want nuclear weapons, not to trade them off, but to keep them.
Well, again, I don't really would like Richard, to pass an absolute judgment. But based on my experience in the last 6 years, the Iranians were ready to compromise on the nuclear, on the enrichment. They were ready to stop at a very at an R&D level. They were ready to stop at a level that could not have created any concern for the international community. But frankly, for the last 6 years, there were 3 years when the US said, we are not going to talk this part of the axis of evil, and another 3 years where conditions were put were impossible to accept, because these conditions should have been the outcome of the negotiation and not the prelude to the negotiation. It's only when now the US is saying, we're ready to sit with you without preconditions and let us talk. That's what I said. This is the first time in my life when I see a possible hope that we might move forward.
Dr. Baradei, you are familiar with both sides, the Iranian side and the three countries, France, US, and Russia, in their fuel proposal. Does this, from what you know, does the Western position amount to giving up or backing down from the condition of the Security Council resolution that says that Iran must suspend the enrichment? And does Iran, when they speak about bringing everything to the table, are they adamant from your point of view that they have to have the Israeli issue in the negotiations with the United States when it comes to that, whatever it is, the grand bargain or whatever you want to call it? Because you call for a dialogue, not open-ended, but I'm just trying to get a sense. How long? What's the end? We know what's the beginning, but what's the end?
Well, I think, no, I don't think, of course, the U.S. or any of the parties to that have in mind that they will flout, Security Council resolution, as obviously that's not the idea. The idea is to find, as I said, a starting point, and that they find that to be a very important, a good opportunity. It's a humanitarian assistance to Iran, to provide fuel that enable people with cancer to be treated. It also shows a trust building, a first step into building trust. I have, as you know, I have a proposal on the table, which I think is fair, which I think it has built-in guarantees, which I hope Iran should look at it with as favorably as possible. Everybody will take risk, but you have to take some risk for peace. However, as I mentioned, we're still talking about the sequencing of it. If that were to happen, and I was in Washington last week, and you read it in the paper, that will be followed by, again, a dialogue on, I assume, the rest of the issues. Of course, the nuclear issue is one of them, how we can, on the one hand, ensure that Iran enjoy the right to use nuclear energy for peaceful purpose, but in a way that creates concern for the international community, and then move on into regional security issues, economic issues, trade issues. There is a lot of issues. How they are going to deal with it, I do not know, and I cannot speak for the Iranian whether they raise the Israeli issue, but definitely a regional security structure is going to be a part of the discussion. However, what I've seen in the last months at least is two very encouraging signs. Bill Burns, Undersecretary of State in the U.S., sat for 40 minutes with his counterpart in Geneva. That's the first time, I think, in 30 years, at least publicly. Dan Poneman, as Deputy Secretary of Energy, sat with his counterpart in Vienna in my presence last week. So it's little steps, but it's little steps that could lead to a huge result, if you like, if we are doing it right. It's just a question of how you overcome the 50 years of mistrust, of stereotyping, and try to take a small step, one step at a time. And I hope still, as I mentioned, General Assembly a couple of days ago, it's a unique opportunity, but it's also a fleeting opportunity. And I think everybody should make sure that we should not miss that opportunity.